When people ask me, what is it you do? I get one of two reactions to my reply. They either bolt for the nearest exit, trying to get away from me as quick as possible, or they react with confusion or outright disbelief. In Canada, there's a report that states, from 2020, that states every 30 seconds a new victim becomes trafficked. Every 30 seconds. That means this is an even bigger problem now than when this happened to my daughter back in 2010. And that is why I have become a sex trafficking and abuse prevention educator. We are a typical suburban middle-class family, deeply rooted in our community and our faith, and we have always prioritized our family's well-being. Due to my husband's stable blue-collar job, I had the privilege of being a stay-at-home mom and spend quality time with my kids, which was a gift. So how did something like this happen to a normal family? It felt like somebody had hit the slow motion button on the remote of my life when she came home and told me that 9 years earlier, she was trafficked by her live-in boyfriend. It took a while to get over that initial shock, but when I did, she slowly started unwrapping her story for me, and I was shocked by the torment that she endured. I didn't know that she was being ostracized by her friends at school because they didn't believe that her pregnancy was due to the gang rape. And she believed that that rape was her fault because she had snuck out to attend that party. We didn't realize that her boyfriend was the one who had noticed that she was being ostracized and used that as leverage to reach out to her on social media and then to tell her that he believed her and that it wasn't her fault. And that is precisely what traffickers do. They target individuals with unmet needs. And unlike what we're led to believe, it is not just those that are homeless or drug addicts, but anyone who is feeling unloved, undervalued, or deprived. So if your child comes home and they're saying to you, I just don't feel pretty enough or smart enough, or they're discouraged because they didn't make the school team, or they're jealous of all their friends because they have more things than they do, or they're anxious because they're being picked on. These everyday feelings that our kids are feeling are what are making them vulnerable enough to be easy targets. Now, you combine that with the fact that the brain's frontal lobe is not fully developed until around the age of 25, and that's where impulse control and decision-making are made, and it becomes obvious why our children, our teens, and our young adults are such easy targets. I didn't know that there is no movement needed in order to be trafficked. How many of you, when you hear the word sex trafficking, think of the word or the movie Taken and Sound of Freedom? Due to that media bias, I had no idea that you could be trafficked locally. I thought you had to go to another country, or you got kidnapped and taken to another country and got trapped there and got sold for sex and had no way of getting home. And that does happen. That's called international trafficking. But there's another side to this that the media rarely talks about, and it's domestic sex trafficking, where there is no movement needed. What that means is you can have somebody in your own country, your own city, your own neighborhood being trafficked, and you probably don't even know it. There is a stat anywhere between 50 to 93% of victims are being trafficked in their own country, shattering the myth that trafficking victims come from abroad. My daughter's trafficker boyfriend took 1.5 years to convince her to move into their apartment together, where they lived just 11 blocks away from us. That dispels the myth that they're at least going to move into another city and that they will actually give up on a victim if it takes too long to get them to comply. I didn't know how easy it is to become a sex trafficker, both in learning how and in avoiding prosecution. Currently online right now, there are 8 books that will teach you how to manipulate and coerce in order to traffic. Sex traffickers do not need to hide their victims like they do with guns or drugs, because they're depicted as girlfriends, making it really hard for law enforcement to even be aware that this crime is happening. And unlike drugs or guns, their victims are a reusable product, constantly bringing in revenue. A sex trafficker can earn up to $280,000 a year for one victim. That, depending on where you live, that's enough to buy a small house. I didn't know that regular people leading regular lives could be trafficked. My daughter wasn't standing on street corners. She wasn't dressed provocatively. In fact, she was a bit of a tomboy. Her trafficker didn't look like the media describes him either, albeit rude. He was ordinary. He was a construction worker with a rundown truck, not someone you would have ever imagined to be involved in organized crime, where there's a third-party person, in this case, surprisingly, a woman, who takes care of the appointments, the transportation, and the money. And we had no clue that when my daughter showed up one day for coffee without my grandson, that she was, in fact, being given a day off because the third-party person was babysitting my grandson and gave her money to get her nails and hair done. I didn't know that you could be trafficked without knowing it and believe that you had consented to it. My daughter's trafficker constantly was guilting her about the fact that he was providing for her and her son and that he just couldn't keep doing so alone. That if they were going to at least make it, she was going to need to do this one little thing for just a little while. Due to the guilt that she was feeling of being such a burden, she eventually agreed to go see the third-party person, truly believing she was going to be able to talk her way out of it later. But when she tried, her trafficker then threatened her son, forcing her to comply. In the last 5 years that I've been working in this industry, I have had the privilege of speaking to a lot of survivors, and all but one truly believed that they deserved what happened to them because they believed they had consented. And like my daughter, they were unaware that a coerced or a manipulated yes is not valid consent. And like my daughter, while they were being trafficked, they had no idea that's what was happening to them due to lack of information. The good news is, I'm proud of my daughter. It is due to her courage and her resilience that she was able to leave her trafficker, and even as a single mom, become self-sufficient. It is due to her willingness to allow me to talk about our story that I am able to shed light on the harsh realities of what domestic sex trafficking really is. This is a difficult topic to talk about. It's just as difficult to listen and think about. It makes us uncomfortable. And that's precisely what the traffickers and those that are preying on our children are counting on. In Brené Brown's TED Talk, Listening to Shame, she states, vulnerability is the birthplace of change. So today I stand before you vulnerable in the hopes for change. That change being that we will not put our heads back in that sand, but that we will do everything we can to educate ourselves on this topic, and it has to be ongoing because the landscape is constantly evolving, particularly with online. In the last 12 months, 300+ million children under the age of 18 have been victims of online child exploitation. 300 million. After today, my hope is that your loved ones won't become one of them. And this is how. You're going to go home and you're going to educate yourself even more. You're not going to put your heads back in the sand. You're going to make sure your family is aware of what this is, and you're going to become your loved one's safe space. That means They're going to be able to come into you and not only talk about this topic, but any other topic that might potentially make them vulnerable without judgment or criticism for whatever it is that they wanted to talk to you about. Because I promise you that if you don't be that for your child, a trafficker probably will. I didn't know is a lousy excuse, and one I have to live with every night when I lay my head on my pillow, haunted by the fact that my ignorance led to my daughter's trafficking, trauma, and pain. Please do not stick your head back in that sand, because I promise you, ignorance is not bliss. Thank you.